155, obviously, Conor is, Conor's absent. He's MIA, missing in action, doing whatever he wants to do. And God bless him, he's having a bloody good time. You got Tony Ferguson, who is the interim champion, another interim belt. I'm not sure what he's doing. I think they offered him Khabib, but it wasn't enough time or something. So he's fighting. Who's Khabib fighting?
I don't know.
Edson Barboza. He's fighting Edson Barboza. But anyway, so you got two champions not fighting at 155. 145, Max Holloway, legit, serious. 35. Who's 35? TJ Dillashaw. I think TJ is going to fight Demetrius next, which will be interesting. So, yeah. So there
Finally,
you go.
something.
Listen, it's all excitement, Lewis. At the end of the day, it's an exciting landscape because there's lots going on, lots to play for. Of course, Conor will probably come back at some point. He said he wants to fight MMA next and he wants a real fight. I don't know what that means. Of course, there was the talk about him fighting Manny Pacquiao. So that was causing a few rumors. And then Dana went out there and said that he might sue Pacquiao's promoter for even approaching Conor. So I don't think that fight's going to happen. If he's talking about suing, is it Bob Arum? Is it Bob? I think Bob Arum is Pacquiao's promoter. So I think he's talking about suing Bob Arum just for even approaching Conor. So if that's the landscape there, I can't see how that fight's ever going to materialize. So yeah, he's probably going to fight sometime in 2018. So yeah, fun times.
It's a little weird though, but I almost feel like with the Conor Pacquiao situation, there's a little bit of where there's smoke, there's fire. I almost feel like if they start igniting that flame and they start getting the ball rolling on it, this is kind of how Mayweather started. You remember this is years ago that the Mayweather rumor started, and it was just like a little thing here. Conor said he wanted to do it. Mayweather said he wanted to do it. And then it became a thing where there was rumors behind the scenes that they were talking. And then it's just started to happen. And remember, UFC, they weren't on board with it at all. Eventually, they said, am I going to spend my time in court and try to, hold up Conor's career? Or am I going to try to take a piece of this because that's the best business move to make? I wouldn't be completely surprised if there's some truth to the rumor and if something like that did happen one day.
Well, there will be truth to the rumor. And of course, I know a little bit more than what I'm letting on because I'm connected to people in those circles. But you got to remember, and again, I don't know facts, figures, percentages, but if I'm not mistaken, and again, I could be mistaken, from what I'm led to believe, and I think it's general consensus anyway, is that the UFC took a percentage of Conor's purse there for allowing him to fight. Now, if the Pacquiao-Conor fight could be big enough, then remember there's a financial incentive there for the UFC. Now, that's if I'm correct, by the way. I could be mistaken, but that's what that's the general consensus online, that the UFC took a piece of Conor's paycheck for allowing him. Now, if the fight with Pacquiao can be big enough, then of course, as I said, there's a financial incentive there. It just depends how big would that fight be. I don't think it's going to be anywhere near as big as the Floyd Mayweather one. Mayweather obviously is a showman himself. His boxing is equivalent to Conor McGregor. Money Mayweather. Conor kind of styled his whole presence on Floyd Mayweather. So the two of them together was a promoter's dream. It really was. I mean, those press conferences were out of this world. From a purist standpoint, Manny Pacquiao is a fantastic boxer. Of course, he is legendary. And it would be interesting. Of course, Conor brings all the MMA fans. No doubt some boxing fans as well now want to see how he would get on against another world-class boxer, not called Floyd Mayweather. So I think it would be a big fight. I don't think it would do anywhere near the numbers of Conor Maymack. What was it called? Maymack. Yeah, Maymack. I don't think it would do anywhere near those numbers, but still, come on, man. They're still going to make a lot of money out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's as big of a fight in MMA for Conor. I think that, I don't know. I don't think there is. I think it's
fair to say that any fight in boxing is going to pay Conor more money. Saying that, though, did you see that apparently, I don't know if this is true, that UFC offered Mayweather $1 billion. Do you see that?
No, I saw that I didn't see that they offered him $1 million.
I mean, I don't know if it's true or bullshit, but he went on Instagram Live or Facebook Live, something, and said he's had a multi-fight contract offer from the UFC for Floyd Mayweather to fight several times in the UFC, and they'll pay him $1 billion.
For boxing or MMA, though? Because I know that they had talked about possibly promoting boxing fights under the UFC banner on the same cards as MMA fights.
Well, I think that's happening. I mean, Zuffa boxing is a thing, from what I'm led to believe, from what I hear, people talking. Zuffa boxing is, and I think Dana said that himself in some interviews at his press scrums. He said, yeah, of course they're going into the boxing world. I think they talked about Anthony Joshua versus what's his name, Francis Ngannou, and all kinds of stuff. So yeah. I mean, Zuffa boxing is going to be alive and running. I don't know when. I don't know if it's talk. I don't know. But from all accounts, it is going to be happening. But from what Mayweather said, it was UFC. Of course, if he went over and fought in the UFC, I mean, I could pretty much anyone in the top 10 would destroy Floyd Mayweather in the UFC. You just can't do it. I mean, for one, he's not going to even know anything about blocking leg kicks. If you've never been kicked in the leg, if you've never experienced a leg kick in your life, one leg kick will put Floyd Mayweather down and he won't get back up. Believe you me. I get somebody like Edson Barboza. Jesus Christ. I mean, the analogy that they use is like hitting somebody in the leg with a baseball bat. And it really is. It really is. And Mayweather is not going to be able to learn that. At his age, being 40, whatever he is, 41, I think. Just ain't gonna happen. No way.
Well, he's used to hitting women with baseball bats, so.
Well, I guess if you go out there and beat women up, it's that's a fair call, Lewis.
Yeah.
No, it is. It is.
Well, it's funny. I didn't know that the UFC was officially launching Zuffa boxing.
I'm going to say that they went after Floyd Mayweather, according to Floyd Mayweather. Of course, always take whatever he says with a pinch of salt. But I think, from some conversations I had with a few people recently, and unofficial discussions, of course, and I'm not talking about my manager or anybody like that, just some other people that know people in the MMA space, a couple of journalists, they were like, Zuffa boxing is a real thing and it will be happening soon.
And is that,
you know what I mean? So once again, take that with a pinch of salt.
I'm assuming that they, excuse me, I'm assuming they launched that after the Mayweather McGregor fight, right?
Yeah, but that's why, I mean, of course, Dana was wearing all those T-shirts, wearing his Zuffa boxing, this and that. And then I think he said in some media scrums, he said, yeah, we're getting into the boxing world.
Yes.
He said that. I think, I mean, I could Google it right now and look for the quote.
Yeah, he did.
He did. He said, "Yeah, we're getting into the boxing world."
Yeah, he said boxing could be a part of Zuffa's future. Then they're selling Zuffa boxing shirts. And he talked to the Wall Street Journal's unnamed pod videocast. I could see bringing boxing under the umbrella and see what we can do with it. And you know what's funny? I think that what they do specifically in terms of branding combat sports, they can do incredible stuff for boxing, because that's been the problem with boxing, in my opinion, is that there's no cohesive branding. Nobody knows what each organization means. Nobody knows what each belt means. It really is about the few fighters that have made names for themselves. And then boxing is just kind of like, it's a sport. It's not like a brand. UFC is a brand in itself. So I feel like if they could put that same type of show involved, they could stack cards. You have 4 or 5 interesting boxing matches on a card the same way the UFC does with mixed martial arts. They could actually do something that nobody's been able to do with boxing, which is to, generate interest in 2017.
Yeah, well, you are correct, but also I think it's unfair to say to generate interest in 2017, because there is a lot of interest in boxing. I mean,
there's like interest in 3 guys.
Pardon me?
It's not interest in boxing. It's interest in a few. There's interest in a few boxers specifically.
Dude, the UK boxing team right now is flying. I'm telling you. I mean, of course, I'm speaking from an Englishman's perspective, but there's a lot of big fights happening in the UK. I mean, you got Tyson Fury coming back out of retirement. You got Anthony Joshua. You got Deontay Wilder. Klitschko just got beat, so he's out of the thing. But the heavyweight scene, and then you got David Haye and Tony Bellew. The heavyweight scene, which is predominantly. It is predominantly English, but you've got Deontay Wilder repping the States, and I'm sure there's a few others as well that I'm forgetting. Then you got Chris Eubank Jr., you got Nigel Benn Jr. There's a lot of big fights happening over in England, and I hear Tyson Fury might be fighting Anthony Joshua soon. Some big fight happening there. So, but going back to what you said, if Zuffa were to get into boxing, which by all accounts they are, it is different for them. The boxing fights go to the promoter, which is willing to make the highest bid, so it makes it very, very interesting, and it makes it a different landscape. But as you say, with the Zuffa or the UFC, all the bells and whistles that they put on the fights and the way they promote it and the light show and the music and everything, it's more fun. So I hear what you're saying. Of course, Big boxing fights are bigger than any UFC fight. That's just the way it goes. The history of boxing is steeped inside everybody. Everybody knows about boxing. Of course, UFC is like a younger thing, a younger generational thing, and some older people like it now as well. But still, boxing is all over the world, every country, and everybody knows all about it. But the UFC, if they were to get involved and they made the highest bids and they took on some of the biggest fights, and as I said, they put on the bells and whistles, it'd be amazing. It'd be incredible. Listen, in my mind, nobody promotes fights like the UFC do. And Dana, with Ari Emanuel, under the Zuffa banner or the UFC banner, getting into that, yeah, I think it's great. I think it's fantastic.
All right. Possibly. What about you, Mike? Let's say, is that ever possible for you? Because you had talked about possibly boxing in the future. Would that be something, if they did, that you would consider doing even after retirement?
Well, I mean, Jesus Christ, I think my face has had enough panel beating for one lifetime, to be quite frank. Why would you ask me that, Lewis? I don't want to sound like a little bitch on my own podcast, but no, I'd love to. But the injuries are getting too much now, if I'm honest, Lewis.
Yeah.
They're getting too much. They are. I've got to think about my health going forward. I would love to. I could fight right now, but, I've had a bad eye. I've got bad knees. I mean, yeah, I still perform in the gym. I still feel fantastic, but injuries are real. Miles on the clock, toll on the body is a real thing, and it comes to everybody. Of course, I just got, I just lost 2 in quick succession. So, got to think long and hard about the future. Look for greener pastures, look for the next phase of my life, So, yeah, I still feel I can compete, but I've got to think about my brain. I've got to think about my vision. I've got to think about all those kinds of things.
Podcast.
It's not whether or not I feel I can compete. Of course, I know I can compete. Of course I can. But I've got to think about, is the damage to my body, after all the damage that I've taken at 38 years old, is it worth it? And I think the answer is no. I'm already, I've got one bad eye and I've got one good eye, and the good eye is already having some slight issues as well. So, you got to weigh all these things up. So, yeah, no, I'm not going to be pursuing a career in boxing. That's a fact.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's take a quick second and talk about one of our incredible sponsors, Tiege Hanley, Mike, which I know you just got your Tiege Hanley package.
I did. And it's very, very good. I mean, come on. I hate to talk about it, but, whilst I look incredibly young for 38 years old, I am noticing a couple of little wrinkles, a couple of new ones. I think maybe it was the week traveling on all these airplanes and airports and whatnot, but I did notice a couple of new wrinkles. So fortunately, Tiege Hanley has got me covered. The simple solution to men's skincare. I mean, let's be honest, pimples, wrinkles, dark spots, these things don't get you laid. They don't look good, and it's preventing